Imagine if you can see a man standing on top of just a massive mountain of merchandise.
Like a literal mountain.
Pretty much, yeah. We're talking tinned corn, mismatched socks, maybe some porcelain figurines, and it is all piled high on these flimsy orange crates.
Oh, wow.
And he is screaming himself hoarse. He's practically vibrating with energy, shouting about a bargain that you literally cannot afford to miss.
It sounds chaotic, like a carnival barker having a full-on breakdown.
Exactly. It's loud, and frankly, it looks a little desperate. But now, cut to a totally different scene.
Okay.
That same man, but now he's in a tuxedo.
Quite the wardrobe change.
Right. He is sipping champagne with British royalty. He's shaking hands with the most elite actors in the world. And he has just single-handedly saved one of the most historic theaters in the Western Hemisphere from a wrecking ball.
See, that sounds like two completely different movies, just spliced together by accident. I mean, usually in business history, you get this scrappy, ruthless discounter, or you get the refined, benevolent patron of the arts.
Yeah, you don't get both.
You rarely get them in the same lifetime, and you almost never get them in the exact same body.
But that is exactly the paradox we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the life, the business philosophy, and the just sheer audacity of Ed Mirvish.
It is a wild ride.
It really is. Now, if you are from Toronto, you know the name Honest Ed. You know that massive sign with the blinking lights that looked like Las Vegas got lost in a Canadian blizzard?
The aesthetic was definitely unique.
But if you're coming to this fresh, you are in for a treat. Because the source material we're looking at today is this incredible biographical record of his life.
And I think we should be clear right up front for everyone listening. This deep dive isn't just a biography.
Right.
We have a stack of biographical records here, sure. But what we're really looking at is a case study in business adaptability.
Yeah.
It's about how a concept called the loss leader, combined with this P.T. Barnum-level showmanship, didn't just sell cheap socks.
It did way more than that.
It actually revitalized entire city blocks and saved the theater industry in 2 different countries.
Yeah. We really do have a lot of ground to cover. The sources paint a picture of a man whose stunts were, frankly, hilarious. I mean, truly laugh-out-loud funny. But under all that humor, there was this unintentional genius at play.
That is the key word for me today, unintentional.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what Mirvish did just to survive or to make a quick buck to feed his family ended up being master classes in urban planning and vertical integration.
He was playing 4D chess.
He was. He was playing 4D chess while everyone else was playing checkers, even if he didn't actually realize it at the time.
So let's rewind the tape. Where does a character like this even spawn? Because he feels like he walks straight out of a Dickens novel. But he was actually born in Colonial Beach, Virginia in 1914.
Right. He starts life as Yehuda Mirvish. His parents were Jewish immigrants from Lithuania and Austria.
Classic immigrant story.
Exactly. And right away you have this narrative of assimilation. His cousin actually pressured the parents to give him a more American name because Yehuda sounded too old world.
So Yehuda became Edwin.
But there's one specific anecdote from his birth, or rather shortly after, that Mirvish himself always pointed to as his destiny. It is in every biography of him for a very good reason.
Oh, the circumcision story?
Yes, the bris.
It's incredible. So Colonial Beach is this tiny town. There's no mohel that's the person qualified to perform the circumcision ceremony.
Right.
So the family's in a bind. They have to import one from Washington, D.C. They bring in this guy, Rabbi Moshe Reuben Yolson.
And for the entertainment history buffs listening, or anyone who knows the golden age of Hollywood, that last name Yolson is the smoking gun.
Exactly. Rabbi Yolson was the father of Al Jolson.
The jazz singer.
Yes. One of the biggest, most famous entertainers of the entire 20th century.
And Mirvish loved to tell people that story. He'd say that because Al Jolson's dad performed his bris, that was his literal physical introduction to show business.
A very painful introduction, to be sure, but it really set the tone. It's almost like the universe tagged him for the stage right from the cradle.
It really is.
But before the stage came the struggle. And honestly, struggle is putting it lightly. The family moves to Toronto in 1923 after his father's grocery store in D.C. goes completely belly up.
And the records from this period, it's grim. They moved to Dundas Street West in Toronto. His father is trying absolutely everything to make ends meet.
Just hustling.
He's selling fuller brushes door to door. He's selling the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry, which is a niche market if I've ever heard of one.
Very niche.
Before finally scraping together enough capital for another grocery store.
And we have to talk about the living situation. They are living above the store, which is classic for the time, but They aren't alone up there.
No, not at all.
They're sharing this tiny apartment with a Hebrew school.
It really grounds you in the level of poverty they were dealing with. Mirvish joked later in life, and he always used humor to deflect the pain that his biggest childhood dream wasn't fame or fortune.
It wasn't a fancy car.
No, it was just to have a bathroom he didn't have to share with 50 other people.
Just basic dignity. And that level of deprivation, it builds a certain kind of grit. You learn to value every single penny. And he needed that grit because tragedy struck when he was just 15.
His father died.
Yeah, and Ed had to drop out of school instantly.
He became the sole support for his mother, his sister Lorraine, and his brother Robert.
Just a kid himself.
Side note here, his brother Robert actually went on to become a very successful novelist later on.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but for Ed, the creative writing had to wait. He was in pure survival mode.
He tries to keep the grocery store afloat, but it fails. So he pivots, and this is where we see the very first flash of that honest Ed attitude, that total refusal to be pushed around.
The dry cleaning business.
Right. He partners with a childhood friend named Yael Simpson, and they open a dry cleaning business,
Which they naturally named Simpsons.
Now, we really need to pause on the context here for you listeners who might not be Canadian. In Toronto at that time, Simpsons wasn't just a name.
It was the name.
It was a massive department store. Think of the equivalent of Macy's in New York or Harrods in London.
Exactly. It was a retail giant.
Yeah.
So naturally, the corporate lawyers from the big department store, Simpsons, get wind of this tiny little dry cleaner using their name.
Oh, boy.
They descend on him. They demand he change the name immediately. They threaten to sue him into oblivion.
And most 19-year-olds would fold immediately. I know I would have folded. But Ed, he brings out his partner, Yael Simpson, introduces him to the corporate suits, and says the famous line,
Here's my Mr. Simpson. Where's yours?
"It is such a brilliant deflection."
It really is.
Yeah.
He knew he was technically right. It was his partner's actual real name, and he just refused to be bullied by the big guys.
That anti-corporate scrappy identity was forming right there in that room. He eventually did settle and change the name, but the moral victory was completely his.
He eventually left dry cleaning and found some stability working as a produce manager for another entrepreneur, Leon Weinstein. But the itch was there. He wanted his own kingdom.
Which brings us to 1948, the year everything changed. He's married to Anne Macklin now, who, by the way, was a jazz singer and a sculptor, which is a fascinating match for a grocer.
A very creative household.
And they decide to take the plunge, but they have no money. No bank is going to loan them what they need. So in a move that would give any modern financial advisor an absolute heart attack, Ed cashes in his wife's insurance policy.
It's the classic burn the boats moment.
Exactly.
There's zero safety net. He takes that cash and opens a store. But Honest Ed's wasn't just a store. It was an assault on the senses.
The aesthetic was, let's call it early chaos.
Early chaos is very polite. It was aggressive. The merchandise was displayed on those orange crates we mentioned, not shelves.
Crates
Just
stacked up.
there was no
fast.
credit, no delivery, no returns, no service. He bought odd lots from bankruptcy sale, fire sale stuff that basically fell off the back of a truck, metaphorically speaking.
But this is where the pure business genius kicks in. He claims to have invented, or at least perfected, the concept of the loss leader.
Now, in retail, we know what this is today. Costco does it with their $1.50 hot dogs. But break down why this was revolutionary for him back in 1948. So a loss leader is a product sold at a price lower than its market cost, sometimes even lower than what you paid for it, specifically to stimulate other sales of more profitable goods.
You lose money on the socks to make money on the shirt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Ed took it to the extreme. He wasn't just discounting slightly.
He was selling tinned corn or unmatched socks for literally
He
pennies.
was practically giving them away. And why? Because it created an absolute frenzy. It stopped being shopping and started being looting.
It turned the whole experience into a competitive sport.
It did. And the orange crates played right into that. They weren't just about saving money on shelving. They were psychological.
Oh, that makes sense.
They signaled to the customer, I am not spending money on fancy decor so I can pass the savings directly to you. It made the customer feel smart. It made them feel like they were beating the system.
And once they were inside navigating that crazy maze of crates, which was intentionally confusing by the way the treasure hunt dopamine hit kicked in.
They'd come for the 5-cent socks and leave with a lamp, a rug, and a whole set of dishes they didn't even know they needed.
And it worked like gangbusters. The store just exploded. It eventually swallowed up an entire city block from Bathurst Street to Markham Street. He billed it as the world's biggest discount department store.
But as he expanded, he ran into a wall. literally and bureaucratically.
Right, the Markham Street houses.
He started buying up the Victorian houses on the next street over. The plan was standard developer logic. Tear down the old houses, build a massive parking lot for the customers.
Pure efficiency.
You need parking for all those thousands of people buying cheap turkeys.
But the city of Toronto said no. They straight up rejected the demolition permit. So now Ed is stuck with a row of old Edwardian houses he can't knock down.
And this is where the unintentional urban planner comes in. Most developers at the time would have just let the buildings rot out of spite or burn them down for insurance.
But Ed listened to his wife, Anne.
Yes. She suggested renting them out cheaply to artists.
Because artists don't mind old plumbing if the natural light is good and the rent is dirt low.
Precisely. And because the rent was so low, artists flocked there. Galleries opened, studios, boutiques. It became Mirvish Village.
It's incredible.
He accidentally created one of the coolest, most vibrant cultural hubs in the entire city just because he failed to build a parking lot.
It is a perfect example of constraints breeding creativity. He couldn't do the boring thing, so he did the interesting thing. But while Mirvish Village was this quiet, artistic side, the main store, Honest Ed's was becoming a full-blown circus.
We have to talk about the stunts.
We really do. This man understood the attention economy decades before the internet existed. He knew that if you're selling discount goods, you can't be dignified, you have to be loud, you have to be unavoidable.
He rode elephants in downtown Toronto.
He did. He brought in literal elephants for parades. But that is just the tip of the iceberg. The source material is full of these.
My favorite story, the one that really shows his manipulative genius in a good way, is the dress code protest.
Oh, this is pure gold.
So later in his career, he opens a restaurant and he decides to enforce a strict dress code. Jackets for men, no jeans, that sort of thing.
Which seems completely off-brand for the guy selling socks on orange crates.
It totally was. And people complained. The media started grumbling about it. So seeing an opportunity, Ed hires people to picket his own restaurant.
Wait, let's make sure you catch that.
Yeah.
He paid protesters to stand outside his own business with signs yelling at him.
Yes. They had signs saying, down with the dress code and unfair to eaters.
Yeah.
He completely manufactured the controversy.
That is brilliant.
Because suddenly everyone was talking about the restaurant. It made the place seem exclusive, important, and worth fighting about.
That is 4D chess right there. He's controlling his own opposition. And then, of course, there were the turkeys.
The turkey giveaway, this became absolute folklore in Toronto. Every Christmas, he would give away 10,000 pounds of free turkeys.
People would line up for blocks. I mean, people camped out overnight in the freezing Canadian winter.
And it lasted until 2015. It wasn't just marketing. It became a genuine part of the city's holiday rhythm.
Yeah.
It was a tangible way of giving back to the community that made him rich. But let's be honest, it also guaranteed that every single news camera in the city was at his front door on Christmas week.
It was essentially free advertising on every channel.
Exactly.
And we can't forget the birthday parties. For his own birthday, he'd throw these massive street parties, free food rides. And when he turned 92 in 2006,
He had a sale where items were 92 cents. He was always looking for the hook. Even his funeral plans were a marketing gag.
oh, the potato salad. I saw the photo of the sign in the store. It detailed his wishes explicitly. It said, when Ed dies, he would like a catered funeral with accordion players and a buffet table with a replica of Honest Ed on it made of potato salad.
A potato salad effigy. You really have to respect a man who just refuses to take his own mortality seriously. He wanted to leave people smiling.
But this is where the story pivots. We have the potato salad man, the orange crate hustler, the guy riding elephants, and then suddenly we have the savior of the stage.
It's quite the transition.
How does the discount king end up owning the most prestigious theater in town?
It starts in 1963 with the Royal Alexandra Theatre. This was a Beaux-Arts landmark, a truly stunning building, but it was on death's door.
The wrecking ball was practically swinging.
The theater business locally was tanking. The O'Keefe Center, which was newer, bigger, all concrete, was taking all the big touring shows. The Royal Alex was losing money fast, and the owners just wanted to sell the land.
So Ed steps in. He buys it from the Moloch estate. And because it was losing money and because nobody else wanted it, he gets it at a massive bargain.
Of course he did. He never paid retail if he could help it. But the cultural elite in Toronto were absolutely horrified.
They clutched their pearls.
They really did. They thought, what does the guy who sells cheap underwear know about high culture? Is he going to put neon signs on the proscenium arch? Is he going to sell popcorn in the aisles?
But he didn't. He restored it lovingly. He brought it back to its original glory. But here's the insight I want to dig into from the deep dive. He applied the exact same retail logic to the theater that he applied to the discount store.
Yes. He realized that the play itself wasn't enough.
He needed an ecosystem.
He understood vertical integration before it was a buzzword in business schools. He looked at the theater and said, people need to eat before the show. If they eat somewhere else, that's money I am missing.
So he bought the warehouse next door.
And turned it into Ed's Warehouse.
A restaurant. But not a fancy, high-margin bistro with a finicky chef. He served a fixed menu to cut costs and increase speed. Prime rib, mashed potatoes, peas. That is it.
It's the Ford Model T of dinners. You can have any dinner you want as long as it's roast beef.
Exactly. No chefs making complicated sauces that take 20 minutes. Just efficient, hearty food in a lavish setting. And because he owned the supply chain, he could keep prices incredibly low.
It served 6,000 meals a night at its peak.
6,000. That is a factory of roast beef.
But look at the strategy here. The restaurant was the loss leader, or at least the volume leader that fed the theater. You go for the cheap beef, you stay for the show.
Right.
He revitalized the entire King Street area. He added Ed's Seafood, Ed's Folly, Ed's Chinese. He built an entire destination.
And once he had the venue and the restaurants, he needed the content. He didn't want to rely on New York producers deciding what to send him on tour. So he and his son, David Mirvish, started Mirvish Productions.
This was crucial. They stopped relying on just booking touring acts. They started producing their own massive sit-down productions. The Lion King, Mamma Mia, Hairspray.
Huge shows.
They brought these to Toronto and kept them running for years. They owned the theater, they owned the restaurant, they owned the show. They captured the entire night out.
He even built a new theater from scratch, the Princess of Wales Theatre in 1993.
Which is astonishing. It was the first privately financed theater built in North America in 30 years.
Wow.
Private money in theater is almost unheard of because the margins are usually terrible. But Mirvish knew how to make the margins work because he wasn't just selling tickets, he was selling the experience.
But Ed wasn't content with just conquering Toronto. He looked across the pond to London.
In 1982, he bought the Old Vic. This is hallowed ground we're talking about. This is the theater of Laurence Olivier and John Gielgud. It was falling apart, and he bought it for £550,000.
Which, for a landmark like that, is basically the price of a semi-detached house in London today. It was an absolute steal.
He spent millions renovating it.
Right.
And under Mirvish management, the Old Vic was artistically incredible. It won tons of awards. It produced some of the best theater of the decade.
What?
But it never made money. Not a dime. He eventually sold it in 1999.
So looking at the balance sheet, was it a failure?
I don't think he saw it that way. And neither did the British Empire. Because he saved that theater, he was made a commander of the Order of the British Empire.
The CBE. That is a very serious honor.
It is. And this brings us right back to the loss leader concept. He lost money on the Old Vic financially, but he gained prestige, he gained a legacy, and he saved a piece of history.
The profit was social capital.
Exactly. He was willing to lose money on what he loved because he was making money on the roast beef and the tinned corn.
Speaking of honors, the list is remarkably long. He was an officer of the Order of Canada. He had an Ed Mirvish Day in Toronto. But my absolute favorite honor has to be the Freeman of the City of London.
Oh, this is the best one. One of the ancient medieval privileges of being a freeman of the City of London is that you have the legal right to drive sheep across London Bridge.
Now, most people would frame the certificate and put it on the wall in their office. Please tell me Ed didn't do that.
He absolutely did not. He rented a herd of sheep.
Of course he did.
And there he was, Ed Mirvish, the boy from Colonial Beach who grew up sharing a battle ram, driving a literal herd of sheep across London Bridge in front of all the press.
It's the perfect synthesis of his life. It's a high honor treated like a barnyard stunt. It is high-low culture in a nutshell.
Exactly. He took the pomp and circumstance and made it fun. He made it accessible.
Sadly, the show had to end eventually. Ed Mirvish passed away in July 2007 at the age of 92.
The reaction was immense. It wasn't just a CEO dying. It was a city icon. Theaters on Broadway in New York dimmed their lights. That is a rare tribute for someone who wasn't a performer or a director. It really showed the respect the industry had for him as a producer.
In Toronto, the police provided a ceremonial unit for the funeral. And get this, one of the police horses in the unit was actually named Honest Ed.
Even Jones Soda issued bottles with his picture on the label.
You know you've transcended business when you are on a soda bottle. That's true pop culture status.
But the legacy has shifted since his death. Honest Ed's, the store itself, closed in 2016.
That was a hard day for the city. I remember it. It was the end of an era. The block was sold for redevelopment. The famous sign went into storage. All those hand-painted signs, which were iconic, full of puns and bad jokes, were sold off to the public.
It's a bit sad, but in a way it fits his philosophy. He was always about the deal, the moment, the event. The store served its purpose. But look at what remains. The Royal Alex is still there. The Princess of Wales is still there. The Mirvish Theatre is still there.
It really is a duality. He sold bargain goods on orange crates so he could lose money on high art productions. He was a man who understood that you have to feed the stomach with cheap turkeys and roast beef before you can feed the soul with Shakespeare.
And he understood that sometimes the best investment is the one that doesn't show up on the balance sheet immediately. Whether it was housing artists in Mirvish Village or restoring a crumbling theater, he played the long game. He understood value, not just price.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the life of the Bargain King, here is something for you to chew on.
Ed Mirvish mastered the loss leader, losing a little here to gain a lot there.
Think about your own life. What is your loss leader? What is the thing you are willing to spend time, energy, or money on at a loss because you know it brings value in a completely different currency? Maybe it's a hobby, a volunteer gig, or just a passion project that drains your wallet but fills your cup.
Because if Ed taught us anything, it's that the things that don't make sense, CENTS, often make the most sense in the long run.
That's a great thought to end on. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.